As you can imagine, my mind has been elsewhere than this presentation, so I'm going to do my best to recall what I put in here. I do want to say that this is made possible by my colleagues Elizabeth Kirby from WSU and Helga Viller from Feeble. They've been the ones that actually have put the data together, so I'm more or less just the mouthpiece for them today, talking about these trends. So these data are based on work we've done here in Washington with our numbers from the certifier that we work with, as well as other certifiers in the US that we tend to focus on to try to get fruit data in particular. And then Helga Viller from Feeble in Switzerland is the one that's been collecting data from certifiers worldwide. It turns out one of the main countries with poor data is USA. So often we have very poor quality data in the US. We've been trying to fill that for fruit and tree fruit in particular because it's been a special interest of ours. So I'm gonna run through these pretty quickly. I tried to just use images to give you a quick sense of what's going on with organic fruit worldwide. This one's probably got a lot of numbers on it to digest, but it sort of sets the stage. And we've done comparisons of total fruit versus organic to give you a sense of how that organic share has been changing, et cetera, which are the most important fruits. A lot of that information is embedded in here. Overall then, we'll start out, we've got somewhere around 55 million hectares of fruit worldwide. That's kind of the big total, which is about 4% of cropland. And then you have to dig into what does cropland mean, but we're not going to go there. It's not pasture. It's not the Australian continent, which is all certified organic. That's not what we're talking about here. It's the intensively managed land that you can probably till and drive tractors on and have people go out and actually raise crops. So then when we look at the pie chart, these data are for 2010. That's the most recent data that we have. This shows the distribution of where the organic fruit area is basically by continent. And Europe really does dominate them. Just a major player, about 56% in Europe. Then next is Latin America, primarily tropical and subtropical fruits. And by far those two dominate the world scene. So compared to the 55 million of all fruit, there's somewhere around 0.64 million of organic fruit worldwide. And that gives us something in the order of 1.2% of all fruit area is organic. Not huge, but it's on the radar. And fruit is 1.7% of all organic land. So again, it's not a dominant land use. It has increased though, so we've seen the fruit acres go up about 22% for organic fruit compared to 6% increase in all organic land. So it is a bit overrepresented, or its growth rate is faster than other segments. To put it in, and so here's some of the differences where the Feeble number was somewhere in the ballpark of 643,000. Our numbers, trying to update the US, came up 5,000 some hectares. Those are some of the differences you'll see. Not a big deal in the long term, but that's where we've been trying to do the updates. One of the problems with the data is the fact that several major horticultural countries like China and India do not provide organic data. They could have 1 million hectares of organic fruit, and we just don't know it because you cannot get data out of those countries. So recognizing that, everything we have represents the reported data, and there could be a bunch of other land out there that we flat out don't know where it is and what it is. All these other countries do report some organic data, in some cases very good quality, and in other cases more questionable. So you can see here, China, India are major players. USA, as I said, we've been pretty spotty. And Mexico, another very important subtropical fruit producer, the data are not great either. So then looking at all fruit, these are the leaders. If we only look at organic fruit, based on what we know, again, Italy really comes out on top, Spain, France, heavily driven by wine grapes. Olives are not included in here, and olives would actually change the equation. But we are not calling olives fruit in our particular classification. When we start to look at the type, grapes dominate. I think grapes are right up there in terms of being the number one or number two fruit crop in the world, depending on how you group bananas and plantains. So grapes are very, very important. Then the subtropical, tropical fruits, citrus, palm about the same, and then stone fruit and berries quite similar. So just to kind of put things in perspective, all organic fruit, again, somewhere around 648,000. Olives themselves, almost 500,000 hectares. So olives as a single permanent crop that often is grouped as fruits is a very big area. And then we also found data on wild harvest of fruit, which are not included in our data. It's classified separately because it's not actively planted and cultivated. There may be some management, but it's still classified as wild. 7.8 million hectares of wild berries are harvested. And someone told me that's the whole country of Finland. So I said, is it one berry per square, per hectare or something? I have no idea what that really means in terms of output. So that's another part of the problem, is we can have acres, hectares, but it doesn't necessarily tell us of how much product is coming out onto the market. And when we have changes in acres, we don't know if that's going to double output or only change it by a fraction, depending on its productivity. So that's one of the real challenges with acre-only data. Okay, looking at the top 6 organic fruits, how do they compare to the top 6 total fruits? And they line up pretty darn closely, as you can see. Grape is the number 1 organic fruit, number 2 world fruit, depending on how you do the banana situation. Bananas, number 2 organic fruit, number 1 total fruit. Apple, number 3, number 4 orange, number 4 organic, number 5 world fruit, on and on. The only real difference then is avocado, which is a higher proportion as an organic than the total area worldwide. If we take these different fruit categories then, temperate, tropical, subtropical, berries, and citrus, kind of as broad fruit categories, and break it down by where they're growing, this again shows Europe in blue to be a major player on 3 out of the 4, and then Latin America to really be driving the tropical and subtropical fruits. No huge surprise there, other than that Europe just keeps coming up as such a major organic fruit producer consistently over and over in all the years that we have looked at the data. Feeble and IFOAM have now been collecting these data since, I think early 2000s. At first it was every other year. Now it's every year. Every year they get more people to report. The quality of data get better. But we are able to look at some time series now, but there is potential to be an artifact of just the situation in 2006. Perhaps certain countries weren't even reporting that started to report in 2008. That noise is kind of built in here, so just understand that when we look at the trends. But given that, share of organic grapes has gone from 1.5 to 3%. As I mentioned, grapes is a major world fruit crop. So we are seeing the organic share of that worldwide crop increasing over time. And that's in contrast to the FAO data on total grape area, showing a decrease over this time period, 2006 to 2010, compared to an organic area increase. And this is pretty consistent throughout the fruit crops that we've looked at. A lot of fruit crops worldwide are level or slightly down. Organic are just shooting up, representing that demand keeps growing, and the acres need to follow in order to provide the product to market. Temperate fruit, mostly what we've been seeing and a lot of what we've been talking about. This is the breakdown by hectares. So apples does dominate currently for the temperate tree fruit area. There's a big chunk where we don't know. So it's somewhere around a quarter of the hectares that are reported, there are no details. And this has been a chronic problem, but I think the last time we did this, the no details was somewhere in the range of 35 to 40%. We're down to 25%, and ideally we keep shrinking that so we actually know what's out there. We've had situations like was shown in Poland, where there's extensive plantings of apples and no one knows if they'll ever actually produce a crop. There's been some strange classifications of orchards, but again, we're not sure if they produce much for the market. So those are all issues in the data, but still we can sort of see clearly apple is the leader, followed by a fairly even distribution of other tree fruits. And here's the same type of chart looking at apple trends, going from 0.5% of all apples that are organic 2006 to 1%. So we've doubled that share over that 5-year period. 1% is not huge, but again, flat for the world total of apple acres, whereas 100% increase for organic apples globally. We can then break this down, and again, Feeble collects all these data and has a lot of spreadsheets where you can manipulate this to see different aspects. This kind of shows the change in the apple production by country by year. So 2006, 8, and 10 data points. And here's the US, our best estimate, going up. And we don't have 2010. We don't have those numbers. Turkey has gone down over time. Argentina has gone up a bit. So some ups and downs. We've seen that here. We peaked in 08, and we've seen a bit of a decline since then in Washington State. And in some cases, you can explain it. For example, here, one single farm went out of organic production for various reasons, and that farm was probably 200 hectares, one single farm. That can start to change your numbers pretty quickly. It doesn't take much when the sector is still relatively small. In terms of berries, these are all berries, including strawberries, and sometimes the statistics put strawberries somewhere else. That's another confusing issue, but we always put them in with berries. We've gone from 1.4% of all berries being organic in the world to nearly 6%. Kind of wonder about that number, but berries, clearly, what we heard on Tuesday, tremendous growth in berries and organic berries in particular. Tropical and subtropical, a little different way of looking at it here on this type of graph. So bananas are clearly the dominant crop, followed by avocados. And over all the fruit crops, avocado has the largest share of total land of that crop that is organic. About 8% of all avocado hectares are certified organic. I shouldn't say certified, are organically managed, because these data include both certified and in transition. Again, another difficult one to sort out with the data that are reported. Here's citrus. Citrus seems to be a little lower down on the totem pole of everything that we've come across. It doesn't seem to be as much change, as much action in the citrus world. And total citrus, less than 1% of all global citrus area is organic, dominated by oranges. So in summary, the organic fruit area is still growing, not surprising, because demand is still growing. And it's growing at a faster rate than all organic land, and it's growing at a much faster rate than conventional fruit acres. So those are positive trends out there for the future of organic fruit. As I mentioned, Europe and Latin America currently are pretty much the dominant players. The data are improving, but we do have these gaps with places like China and India. We just don't know exactly what they're growing. And I think another point I like to make is that these data talk about the hectares under organic management, but I know here in the US there are a lot of farms that are mixed with conventional and organic. And as we heard from Kyle yesterday, he's using practices that he started with on his organic, they've spread to conventional. We have no sense of how much bigger the footprint, the impact of organic is on other fruit production, and that's something that would actually be kind of interesting to take a look at. If you're interested in these numbers, we have a whole website of organic statistics here, and then Feeble puts their report online there as well. So that's where I'm going to stop. Things moving.
Time for a few questions.
Yes.
There was one chart that had some numbers from China, even though you said there were no numbers from China. I think the berry chart. Oh, no. You had.
This one?
No. Forward. No.
I think that's the only that's
there. About the UK, it says China.
Yeah, and you see they're all the same. We have one data point from 2005. That's the only time we've gotten a number out of China.
Actually a real number that emerged.
But we don't even know how real it was, because it wasn't clear what organic standard they were using to say it was organic land. That's another problem. They had several systems over organic classification in China.
Yeah, because there are no certifiers. There are no Chinese certifiers, but there are certifiers who work in China.
Correct.
European certifiers.
Yep.
So.
Yep. China's a confusing one, and you know they're a huge horticultural country, so
yeah.
we know we're missing things.
Okay, I just think this is an interesting one. If it's going, yeah.
Yeah, if for the wild harvested berries, are those mostly vaccinium? Is there anything besides vaccinium that really?
I don't know what they are. I wasn't able to get details on what they are. There's some, I don't know. Winged berries, is that vaccinium?
No. Yeah, it's like cloudberries and blueberries.
And then, there'd be other wild fruit like acai, how do you pronounce it, from Brazil. And so those are out there, but it's hard to get a handle on.
We have to move on. Thank you very much, David.